Get the Friendo Club set up today and get access to over 700 Going in Raw bonus episodes, our monthly Big Blue predictions challenges, and the ability to ask questions at Going in Raw. We also offer the Steve Larson comic book and exclusive Friendo Club t-shirt. Just hit join here at youtube.com/Steve Larson or go to patreon.com/Steve Larson to sign up. Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Ben Larson.
And welcome back to Going in Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. On today's episode, we're going back in time to November of 2001 for a retro Going in Raw review. It's been a while since we've done a retro review, but we've got a different, like our programming for this week is going to be a bit different because Larson's heading out of town this weekend.
Sounds like the brief conversation we had before we started that we both did a bit of research regarding this show as opposed to just watching the show, which is at least for me usually what I do.
Yeah, no, you know what, man? I feel like for these retro reviews, you know, it's nice to get a little context because I always realize, here's the thing. Whenever we do one of these retro reviews, especially if it's like a big WWE pay-per-view, not like, because, you know, last time I think we did like an NXT episode, we've done an ECW episode.
Yeah.
But we do these big shows. And especially like with something like this, with the origin of the Survivor Series, of course, goes back to the purchase of WCW, a little bit of WrestleMania 17, and then, of course, obviously the big Invasion pay-per-view, which, you know, most people consider a pretty big ball drop. In fact, even Linda McMahon in the conference call for the quarterly reports was like, yeah, our creative sucks. The analogy that she used was the Invasion angle was when we had to drop back and punt. Yeah, they were dogging their own creative. She did place a little bit of the blame because 2001 is well known for when it really started falling apart for WWE from a business perspective. Ratings went way down. Largely that's blamed, at least by Dave Meltzer, on Stone Cold's heel turn, how that did not, that did not go well.
No.
And Linda McMahon did place some of the blame on sagging attendance on 9/11, which happened only 2 months before this, about 3 months before this.
Yeah.
But she also placed a large part of the blame on the bad creative.
Yeah, and I listened to the episode of Grill and JR about this show, and it's interesting how, so he doesn't disagree with the bad creative aspect. However, it's interesting that he thought rather than pulling the plug on the Invasion storyline, the Alliance versus WWE now, that there was more legs to it. That he thought this is something that they could have kept going with further. And, you know, like the Raw right after this show was when Ric Flair signed with WWF. He's accepted the buyout from Time Warner on the remaining terms of his time on his deal. Signed a deal with WWF to start appearing on TV, and that's when they did the whole kind of Ric Flair owns half of WWF type stuff.
The consortium is me.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so I guess if you look at it through that lens, holding off on any sort of blow off until you can start bringing in some of the more high profile names that were in WCW to bolster potentially the storyline, because one aspect of this, one of many faulty aspects of this Invasion storyline, the newsletter talking about this show, Meltzer, he doesn't treat the creative aspect of this with kid gloves. You know what I mean? He blasts it for what it is. He
dogs it big time.
A mess, you know? And a bit of a tangent here. I'll get to my point. It's interesting. I was looking at the newsletter for November 26, 2001, which is a review of Survivor Series 2001. Then also, there's a Figure 4 Weekly covering the same show with a different write-up, and get this, different star ratings.
Who is that
It just says Wrestling Observer staff or something like that.
Okay, yeah. I have it up right here.
That blew my mind. There's 2 sets of star ratings for this show.
Okay, so let's see. No, our email address is Brian at Wrestling Observer.
So it's Brian Alvarez. Oh, these are the...
no, this is just the write-up for the in-house notes stuff. But it's possible this is Alvarez. I don't know who this is.
Interesting. Anyways, you know, because... I think it's pretty common knowledge, but I'll reiterate just in case, that when WCW was sold to WWE, like all the wrestlers on the roster could either accept the buyout on their WCW deal and then sign with WWF, or they could ride out the duration of their contract, which for a lot of them was huge money.
Oh yeah.
And then when those contracts ran out, we saw that in 2003 when a lot of people showed up in WWF. You had Goldberg, Hogan, Hall, Nash.
Yeah.
A lot of the major names, Steiner, they just waited till, which makes sense. They're getting paid millions of dollars, probably.
Yeah.
Effectively to sit at home.
Yeah.
Rather than potentially taking less money to go back on the road and wrestle again. I get it. It's a business decision. It makes sense.
Yeah, Booker T.
It just really kneecapped this particular storyline because you look at the main event, and there's 2 of the 10 people in the main event who are actually recently major stars in the promotions that were supposed to make up the alliance, and that'd be WCW with Booker T, RVD with ECW. Everybody else involved in this are WWE wrestlers. And so you don't have the star power from the alliance side for people who were more recently in WCW or ECW. And so it just feels like a WWF match.
Yeah, not to say it wasn't a hot one. It was a really good match.
The pace was really good for a 45-minute match. It didn't drag at all.
The crowd loved it too. The crowd was really into this because especially down to the last 15 minutes or so. Like you said, it was a 45-minute match, and the crowd was really into it. But I don't think anybody would disagree that they really should have just waited for the big names for their contracts. And I don't know. I get it. I feel like did JR expand on that at all in terms of, hey, why didn't you just wait? Was it, given that you had Booker T and DDP, and they had, by the way, already buried DDP. Like he showed up.
Yeah.
If you think about where DDP was back in 98, his character was just so cocky and, well, not cocky. He was like confident, and this guy really fit in with all the big names in WCW. Obviously, he was a multi-time WCW world champion, and he was a multi-time main event guy. And then when they bring him into WWF, like, for whatever reason, Undertaker didn't like working with him, whatever the situation was, he was a shell of his former, with all the, motivational speaking stuff. It's like, okay, well, there's one major player that you guys killed off the bat. Yeah. Luckily, Vince really liked Booker T, who wouldn't. And so Booker T was seen as a major player. You can understand why. Like, Booker T had the sports entertainment thing down. He had the look, he had the charisma, he had everything that you want out of a WWE guy. And I could see maybe Vince looking at DDP and being like, well, he's kind of like older, and I don't really get the vibe all that much. I don't know. I don't know
either. I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I wonder if a lot of it just comes down, because in the newsletter and this other Figure 4 Weekly by Mystery Authors,
by staff,
they both make the case that so much of the drama of the invasion storyline was torpedoed because Vince wouldn't let WCW get over, essentially.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Booker T, a superstar, absolute superstar.
Yeah, of course.
And in this storyline was treated as such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you have someone, because so many people that came over after the WCW purchase were the younger and mid-card guys.
Mm-hmm.
You had your Sean Stasiaks and your Chuck Palumbos. And so, like, so few of WCW's main event stars came over around that time. It was DDP and it was Booker T.
Yeah.
And the way that they instantly botched DDP's arrival with the whole stalker gimmick, dropped that after he got humiliated by Undertaker, and then did the motivational speaker stuff. There's this all floor for that gimmick, there's not much ceiling there.
The next year's WrestleMania 18 was much more of a WCW versus WWF thing. Although at that point, basically even on the Raw afterwards is when Vince said, we're no longer going to refer to the WCW World Title as the WCW World Title. It's simply the World Championship. And then that very quickly disappeared. And then it was brought back in 03, I think, under Bischoff when they did the brand split stuff.
And he handed it to Triple H, yeah.
And he just gave it over to Triple H. But even then, it wasn't considered WCW. It was just the World Heavyweight Championship. Dude, you have to wonder if maybe this was just a situation where Vince wanted to bury WCW as opposed to, hey, let's tell a compelling story where we're really on the ropes here. You can make, even when it comes to like who they chose for the alliance, it's like, well, Chris Jericho came up in WCW. Maybe that actually would have made a lot of sense for him. And
same with Big Show.
I get, yeah. That's actually a good point. I thought about that one, but it's like, I get Austin. Look, I guess the idea is we wanted the last two pieces to be Rock versus Austin. Number one, their chemistry was off the charts.
Oh,
it really
off the charts,
was.
great. Yeah.
And they are the two biggest names that you have. And Austin did legitimately have time in ECW where that you could argue that Austin character really came to life. And then he was brought in as the ringmaster, kind of, lobotomized, and then he found it again. And so I always understood, but at the same time, it was always really obvious that even down to the lame ass name, The Alliance, which I was just, yesterday while I was watching, I was like, oh, was that a reference to the Dangerous Alliance? Because Heyman was there, and I never thought about that. But I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe it was coincidental. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But, they had that lame WCW redo logo, so it didn't even really feel like it was real WCW, on top of, obviously, the talent issue, which was the biggest thing, obviously. But, thinking back to my time as a fan back then, it just seemed lame from, the get-go. Bringing in ECW was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But even at that point, it was like, Heyman's awesome, obviously, but it's like, they were doing nothing with Raven, who was a big piece of ECW. Tommy Dreamer was there, but they weren't doing anything with him. RVD was RVD and the Dudleys. That was really like the major, and then Taz to a degree.
Yeah.
And that was the major stuff. There was some decent stuff, like even in the go home week. I watched the Raw and SmackDown before and the Raw afterwards, and there was some decent stuff there. But yeah, like, I don't know, the crowd was into it, but obviously this was not an ideal situation. It seemed like Vince just wanted to sort of get rid of the other stuff to show I had won, Yeah,
pretty much. And speaking about the crowd being into it, while the crowd, the people there in attendance were into it, compared to the Survivor Series the previous year, there was a lot fewer people in attendance. I believe on Grill and JR, Conrad and JR said the building was about half full. So I think capacity for the Greensboro Coliseum is 20,000.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In the newsletter, it was about 8,000 people in attendance. So less than half full. Survivor Series the previous year in 2000 drew 14,000 fans in Tampa. One other thing JR spoke about in some detail was the rationale behind we saw for the finish and Stone Cold's subsequent face turn, where Stone Cold was getting his royalty checks, his merch checks, and they were getting like zeros lopped off from what he was making before. I mean, recently Kurt Angle said that he had heard or saw that Stone Cold made $16 million.
Yeah.
And a lot of that you got to expect. I think JR said one time Stone Cold had $1 million royalty check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was seeing his merch sales go down the drain and was like, whoa, I got to get back to being a babyface so I can sell those T-shirts. And it's interesting in the newsletter where there was like kind of two factions. Mm-hmm. It was JR and Stone Cold really pushing to turn Stone Cold face again.
Right.
It was Triple H.
Yeah.
Apparently Paul Heyman that were like, no, we want, Triple H specifically, it seemed like, wanted that Mania match against Stone Cold. Mm-hmm. Triple H was about to come back, end of the year, beginning of 2022 from the quad tear.
I want to say it was January 2002,
yeah. 2002. Come back as as a huge baby face and get the win against Stone Cold at Mania. I mean, it ended up being Triple H and Jericho. Jericho would win the undisputed, or beat The Rock and Austin the same night to be the undisputed champion. But I guess maybe from a business perspective, given the wild success the company had seen with babyface Stone Cold, that turning Stone Cold face again was probably the smart idea.
I don't think that there would. Yeah, there's really not much of a case otherwise. Like number one, Triple H. I understand that he would have understood. Well, when I come back, I'm going to be a big baby face. He wasn't very long though, because he wasn't. He's just much better as a bad guy. I mean, I guess you can make the case for DX Triple H being a much better, tweener, good guy, whatever you want to call it. But once he turned that corner into the game, nah, man, you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
You don't need to beat Austin as a bad guy. That's role reversal right there. That's really silly. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, 1,000%. When you look at the business and like how it turned, downward, and I'll be honest with you, I wonder, like, Rock being a good guy. He was wildly popular. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't from like a subjective, like, what's better, Rock as a good guy or Rock as a bad guy. Rock as a bad guy just works so much better. I mean, I know that it's difficult for the crowd to turn on him, but this phase of the Rock's WWF run is so uninteresting. Like he seems so half in it. And here's the thing about The Rock. The Rock was so good, he could phone shit in.
Yeah.
And still be wildly popular. But like when you compare 2001 Rock, this iteration of The Rock, to 1998 Rock or 1998 Rock, there's no comparison.
No.
He had one foot out the door in Hollywood. They were referring to him as a movie star already at this point. And he had that one foot out the door, and you can kind of tell that he was probably focused more on, okay, what's my next Hollywood situation going to be? Let me go ahead and help these guys out, and in the WWF. But it seemed like he was, and I don't think he was only around for very sporadically. Once he did the Hogan thing the following year, he was like not around that often, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you had that Hollywood Rock run after that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I think by 2003-ish,
his WrestleMania 03 match was like the last that we saw of him on a regular basis. Like he would show up every once in a while after that, I think. But yeah, getting back to Survivor Series, when you think of the iconic moment where Vince buys WCW and all the possibilities at play, and understanding, that after, when you see I do kind of wonder if some of it was the timing of WCW, because that was right before WrestleMania 17. That was March. I think, of 2017. Yeah. And, WrestleMania goes down. Then you start looking at the invasion possibilities. Well, if you start to get a hint that your business is starting to go on the decline, you might be much more hesitant, because Lord knows those contracts for those big names, those were, off the charts. I think Flair, to bring him in, according to the newsletter, it was like $800,000 that he was still owed to Time. Flair was like, I'll come in, but I'm not going to lose a dollar. So you're going to give me what I was making off of Time Warner Time Warner AO, whatever it was called at the time.
Yeah.
And I want a couple 100,000 more. And that was like their big spend was Ric Flair.
Yeah.
But to think that you can get Hogan, I mean, Goldberg, he was making a ton. Steiner, he was probably making a ton. Hall and Nash, were making ungodly money, probably because they had that favored nation stuff.
Yeah.
Hogan's contract in 98 was so ridiculous. I don't know how long it went for, probably 4 years.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculously over the top that, like, I could understand why they wouldn't want to foot the bill for that in 2001.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I get that too. But at the same time, and going back to the idea that ratings, almost instantaneously after Stone Cold turned heel, started going in the toilet. That they want to try to find some story to kind of try to kickstart interest in the programming again. And all right, let's do this WCW invasion. Well, do we have maximum star power that we could that would be necessary to sustain whatever short-term interest based on the storyline?
Yeah.
Figure it out down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they had to supplement the alliance with WWE superstars to get the star power up at that point, because they didn't have, whether it was strictly monetary or whatever the case may be, they didn't have Hall, Nash, Hogan, Goldberg, Steiner, a lot of those names.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they botched DDP.
Yeah, and they had already messed him up. We'll get to the rest of the Survivor Series review in just a second. Lars, you want to pay some bills first?
Let's do it. Well, let's take a break here. Get a word from sponsor today's show, Tecovas. Steve, with the holidays nearly here, I've been feeling a bit nostalgic of late, and I've been thinking about these Western boots that I had when I was a kid. Maybe I got them for Christmas. I don't remember. I wore them all the time, though. But I don't think that adult Larson could pull off wearing Western boots now.
Yeah, man, you've said that before, but I definitely think you could totally rock some Western boots from Tecovas. Tecovas crafts quality Western boots for everybody, from ranchers to cowboys to first-time boot buyers like yourself. Every pair of Tecovas boots are handed-crafted with over 200 steps for broken-in comfort, so they're going to feel right out of the box. Plus, the reviews for Tecovas are off the charts. Reviewer after reviewer mentions that they fit great, they're comfortable and easy to put on. Heck, Esquire said in their review, "There's a reason we keep coming back to Tecovas." And with Tecovas' Best in the West guarantee, you get free returns and exchanges for 30 days.
All right, sounds like I owe it to my feet to pull on a pair of Tecovas. Right now, get 10% off at tecovas.com/raw when you sign up for email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/raw. tecovas.com/raw. See site for details. Tecovas. Point your toes west.
So do you want to get right into the recap here?
We can. So as the show opens up with the video package, and they've used this song a lot.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I looked into it because I didn't know much about it. I've heard it plenty. So it's very obviously, let's say, inspired by The Doors.
I had to look up if this was, if Morrison was on a kick where he was like, I wrote the end, now I'm going to write a similar song to this. Look, I'll be honest with you. This is a really fucking cool song. Whatever.
Because it sounds like 95% like the end, which is a really cool song.
How does this one go again? Okay, it's like half in my head, but it keeps, it's one of those things where it's in my head, but it keeps on getting taken over by the end, by the actual
one, I know.
Yeah, this is the end. It's something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good ripoff of The Doors' The End.
Imagine if like a new metal band covered the original song, and that's kind of what you get.
It's like Stained did The End.
So actually, I looked it up. Jim Johnston wrote it.
Not surprising.
And then
the end is near. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it just says performed by Eamon Cronin. I don't know who that is. That was on Wikipedia via the WB Music Volume 7.
Okay.
So I would assume that's the name of the vocalist.
Gee whiz. Yeah.
But they've used it a lot. They used it a lot through that era of WB.
What, this song?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Apparently, it was a theme for like Armageddon 2004 or 5 too, something like that.
Wow, man, they went back to that well a lot, huh?
Yeah,
well, Armageddon, that makes sense.
They want to like put a punctuation on something.
The end is near.
Yeah.
This is the end. Nope, not that one.
Nope, can't use that one.
Can't use that one.
One that sounds 95% like it that we paid to make.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So in this video package, they really tried to hype up they tried to put the stakes out there in video package form.
Yeah.
That the very existence of WWF, still WWF at the time. It's a few months later that they had to change the name. Mm-hmm. WWF, the very future, the is on the line here in this
existential crisis for WWF.
It is for WWF. But can you honestly imagine they scrap the WWF branding and say Alliance Monday Night Raw? No,
yeah, okay. What would the name have been of the other, like,
WCW/ECW Monday Night Raw?
Well, did you see that on the website? There was a period where they were before the Alliance was officially the name. They were referring to that group as WECW. So maybe I think that was probably could you imagine? Maybe I wonder if anybody did any like mock-up artwork, because maybe that was. I'm sure the digital arm just didn't have any clue. Like they were not in the know. So they were like, hey, boss, we got to talk about this on AOL.com/WWF or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, just call them WECW. That makes the most sense. And then a couple days later, they're calling it the Alliance. The Alliance.
Well, I guess that, especially once you get WWF roster members in there, that'd be WECWWF.
Yeah, right. So
that's just too much. That's too many letters.
I mean, yeah, it would have been Alliance Championship Wrestling, ACW.
Hey.
Action yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, maybe it would have been that. I don't know. I don't think they ever really thought that one through.
Oh, there was no chance the Alliance was winning. So.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So the first match that we had was Christian.
Oh, the best theme. Gosh, I missed that song.
Versus.
At last, you're on your own.
So he was part of the Alliance, and he was taking on actual ECW alum Al Snow. And this was for the European Championship. Al Snow had completely ditched the head thing, completely ditched the thing that made Al Snow interesting. Now he was tough enough coach.
Yeah, that was his gimmick now because he had a tough enough shirt on. Yeah,
and his tights had like a snowman on it, and on one side it had a snowman on it, and the other one it said the snowman.
And on the butt it said cometh.
Oh, is that what it said? The snowman cometh. Yeah. Okay, all right on. So Cold was his gimmick, and Cold tough enough.
Yeah, Frost. What was the Fang McFreeze? Is that one of the names they pitched for Stone Cold?
Yes, yeah, I think Fang McFreeze, Chili McFreeze, something like that. But yeah, Christian had won the European Championship and had joined the Alliance. He comes out, does a promo. They're, of course, in North Carolina, so he says, hello, everybody here in South Carolina. He was like, how psyched are you to see the champion of Europe? He says, it's fitting that we're in Greensboro, the place where all of your hopes and dreams and where the WWF has come to die. And yeah, this match was made on the Heat episode that preceded this. I don't even know if Heat's available to watch, and so I didn't.
Good question.
Yeah, there's none of this on the Go Home stuff. The Go Home episode of I think it was SmackDown, was basically just a 15-minute promo between Austin and The Rock, which seemed completely improvised and really much more at home at a house show, because it was just each guy taking the microphone from the other guy while they're trying to do. This was not like the WrestleMania 17 build where they're like slamming, brewskis, and they had that cool shit. This was the most meandering promo I'd ever see. But yeah, there was no match set up. They just set this up on Heat. Maybe they needed to fill out whatever this was, 7 minutes or whatever this was.
Yeah. It was pretty short. But, most of the matches, since the main event was 45 minutes long, most of the preceding matches, or all the preceding matches, were fairly short except for the cage match for the tag titles.
Yeah, right.
So Christian gets the win, a pretty decent match. Hits the kill switch to get the W. Alliance wins
again. Yeah, because they also set this up on the Go Home week, where like the Hardys had the WWF titles and the Dudleys had the WCW title. So they did. Oh no! I'm sorry. That match was on this show. Yeah. It was Booker T and Test had the WCW titles, and they're like, oh, we need to get the Dudleys onto the show, so we're gonna have them beat Booker T and Test for those titles.
Yeah, two teams both on the Alliance.
Right. Yeah, they had to they had to very quickly figure out the rest. I'm pretty sure heading into the week of the pay-per-view, they knew what the main event was. Clearly, they didn't have any idea what else was going to happen on the show.
No, it didn't seem like there's a whole lot of planning.
They were setting all this up like that last week. So Christian really gets the unprettier here for the win. Meltzer gave this one 2 3/4 stars.
That's about right.
Yeah, that's about right. This was a 6 minute 30 second match. Not gonna get a whole lot out of that unless you're really giving it your all,
Yeah. After that, we're backstage. Deborah's walking with Stone Cold. They barge into the Alliance's locker room. Maybe it's Stone Cold's locker room. So Stephanie's asking Austin, "Hey, you haven't returned our phone calls. Why haven't you?"
I didn't want to.
Thank you. So Steph asked him if he's going to turn on the alliance and join WWE because apparently he was smiling at Vince on one of the go-home shows, either on Raw or SmackDown.
It was SmackDown. And so the SmackDown, you know how like that clip on Twitter that was floating around for ages, the craziest finish in SmackDown history, where it was everybody like it was that's what that was. Yeah. And in the end, Stone Cold stood tall by hitting The Rock with a stunner. And then McMahon comes out, he meanders out, and he starts smiling, and Austin smiles back at him. And so McMahon the entire go-home week was like, Stone Cold is going to turn on the alliance.
Well, that was the thing here too. Is Vince is like, oh, I got a ace in the hole.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know, I got something. I got a surprise, and then
turned out.
I guess maybe it was a Kurt Angle turning on.
It was Kurt Angle because, like in the next episode of Raw, they sort of clarify that Kurt Angle had been undercover with the alliance for like the previous month. And nobody knew about it except for him and McMahon.
He had just joined a month ago. Sort of like Christian just joined the alliance a month prior to this show.
Yeah, right, exactly. Look, Austin as a bad guy was entertaining.
Yeah.
He was not compelling, but he was entertaining. Like he was doing you know what my watch says right now? He was doing that shit, which oddly didn't have quite the legacy that the what chant does. Nobody is like, oh, I wonder what my watch says right now. So he's like, well, are you guys scared I'm not going to turn on you? And Shane's like, look, we put everything. There's multiple times when Shane and Stephanie claim that they dumped all of their money into the alliance. And I'm like, that's a terrible investment. That's an awful, awful investment. And then yet somehow they were still able to sell half of like the company to Ric Flair. So I don't exactly know how this double dipping economy shit works.
Pennies on the dollar, I guess, in the sale to Rick.
I suppose so. I'm not sure. And so, but there's some really funny stuff here. Angle and Austin had great chemistry, and honestly, it kind of felt like they were just trying to make each other laugh.
That's exactly what it was. Heel Stone Cold during this period was just trying to make people laugh.
Right, exactly. And he was half successful because he would be like going into RVD's face. What about RVD? You want to be the leader? And, you know, you'd see RVD try not to chuckle. So Kurt Angle was the worst at it, though, because he was trying to make Austin laugh.
Yeah.
So Angle's like, no, I should be the leader. And RVD's like, no, I should be the leader. And he's like, oh, you know what my watch is saying for all of you to stop being paranoid and follow the leader? I'm going to take down WWF even if I got to do it by myself. I got nothing else to say. Y'all can leave. So they're all worried that he's going to turn, and he's insistent that he's not.
So then this next segment is bad.
Okay, so I will say this. After watching this, it's an extended backstage mise-en-scène situation where it starts with Vince and Linda, and it takes a couple twists and turns in this backstage area. I have to say this, though. Kudos to Vince, at least, for being... This is like fucking 7 minutes. This thing is so long, and he's able to remember everything he's supposed to do. I don't care who you are, what your reputation is. If you can hold this shit like it's a goddamn play for that long, color me impressed.
I don't know, man. If you can do that plus provide some drama, then maybe. But this was all kind of bereft for, because so Vince is talking to Linda. And he's like, you can't have it both ways. You know, you can't risk everything on one hand and be concerned about someone's safety on the other. And Linda says, well, the stakes are so high tonight, I'm concerned someone's going to get hurt. And Vince says, in a situation like this, guess what? Shit happens. So be prepared for whatever's going to happen next. So then Michael Cole, a very young Michael Cole, walks
super
up,
young, yeah,
asks for a comment. He says, this could be the last night of the WWE's in business. And Vince says, are you concerned? Like you could be out of a job tonight? He says, but WWE will win. Give me credit for being a good businessman. I built an empire by taking calculated risks. If you're on my team, you have to understand there's always an ace in the hole, which means 6 team members versus 4 members for the alliance. So Vince turns to leave, but then there's William Regal. Mm-hmm. So he says Austin is loyal to the alliance, as I am to the Queen. So we're going to take great pleasure in seeing everything Vince built getting flushed down the toilet. And I look forward to the first Alliance Raw. There we go. It's going to be Alliance Raw.
Oh, there you go.
To see them both publicly humiliated.
Of course, the irony in that is, do you know what happened on the first...
Kiss My Ass Club, newest member.
That is correct.
William
Regal.
Regal.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, Vince is so. Yeah, could you imagine being number one? I always did kind of appreciate just how much Vince loved William Regal. Such a terrific character, and him going heavy on the British stuff. He always had a picture because he was the commissioner. He always had a picture of the Queen up in his office. There's a segment, I don't know if it was on Survivor Series or on Raw, but Christian shows up and he pours himself some tea. And it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that wasn't on Survivor Series. Must have been on Raw.
Okay, I guess so. Speaking of Regal, we had a short, 4-minute match between him and Tajiri, which the 4 minutes we got, I thought was a lot of fun.
They're both great wrestlers. Why not give them 12?
Dude, the mishmash of styles is okay, is this gonna work? But god damn it, the small amount that we got was a lot of fun. It just we didn't get a whole hell of a lot. Tori was with Tajiri, so Regal hits a double underhook power bomb to get the win here. Another win for the Alliance.
No, say it right.
Alliance wins again.
Thank you.
After the bout, Regal hits another power bomb. Tori Wilson runs to the ring to check on Tajiri. He walks back, grabs her by the hair, hits her with his power bomb, and then leaves.
So Regal, someone who's got a long and extensive history in WCW, joined the Alliance about a month prior.
Sounds right, yeah.
To help Stone Cold win the WWE title.
Yeah. They even, and I know it had been probably 2 years since they did anything than since Raven was significant at all. Because, as soon as he came to WWF, they did fucking nothing with him. Which is crazy, and maybe I mean that to me, given how strong of a personality I've always heard the performer Raven is.
Yeah.
I think his real name is Johnny Polo. I think it's Scott Levy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty Flamingo. It wouldn't shock me if it was just simply he wanted to do his cool shit and Vince didn't see it a certain way. And so he was like,
it's probably he wanted to do his cool shit and Vince didn't get it.
yeah, exactly.
Another interesting note about this particular match that Tajiri, member of Team WWF, also someone with an extensive history at ECW, was in fact the WCW Cruiserweight Champion walking into this match.
Oh, okay. So after that, we had a video package highlighting the feud between Test and Edge. Test had beat Edge for the IC title via roll-up with feet on the ropes. Edge beat Kurt Angle on the go-home episode of Raw or SmackDown, I forget which one, for the United States Championship.
Just everything falling into place last second.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, yeah. And then it completely checked out
and then
Commissioner.
Mick Foley books a title unification match for Survivor Series. So they're going to take the United States Championship story title within WCW. Greensboro in the Mid-Atlantic, home in large part to NWA/WCW, and say this is the place where we're going to retire this belt.
I mean, it was only retired until 2003. They brought it back with its full lineage.
But did they know that when they booked it to be merged with the IC title here, Steve?
They didn't know they were going to do it 2 weeks later, Larson, but they did it.
That's what I'm saying.
Look, here's the thing. Look, McMahon won. Okay? He won. At that point, WCW's mirrored Ted Turner probably gave Vince McMahon so many fits. 83 long weeks, Larson. 83 long weeks. Especially if you look at where both companies were at the beginning of that 83 weeks and just how big WCW was and how fucking rinky-dink WWF was, man, I kind of get it. I'd bury the shit out of them. I'd bury the living shit out of them. I get it.
So they were backstage, and Test is getting prepped for his match. There's a woman, putting body oil on him. And he tells her, hey, you got to put it on correctly, otherwise it's not going to catch the light. People won't see how defined I really am.
The way you just read that line had about 50 times more charisma than he did.
Yeah. So then Stacy Keibler walks in and says, you know what, you're right. And he says to her, after I win and the Dudleys beat the Hardys, I thought maybe we can all go out and party. Maybe later tonight we can reunite. And she says maybe, wishes him good luck, and then while she's leaving, she rubs her hands across his buttocks.
I thought she was going to like give him a spanking, but instead she just sort of caresses his cheeks.
Yeah. And then he goes, yeah, she wants me. Oh, it's cringy.
The oil lady rolled her eyes, which was a good bit of comedy, but this was so cringe. He's not good at acting. Test was not good at acting. He had a killer theme song, terrible at acting.
Yeah. Then we got the coachman interviewing Edge, and asking about his match against Test, the unification bout. And he says it's pretty heavy on paper. The match seems pretty even, but the difference is that Test has been dumped by virtually every chick on the planet. I'm not worried about losing. Test isn't going to hit him with his boot. Instead, he'll be hearing, and he does a Test impression. I lost. What was that all about?
Well, he says, I lost. What was that all about? And he does Edge is pretty funny here. He does a pretty good Test impression. So, kudos to him.
What's weird is seeing an Edge entrance without Metalingus.
He had just got the White Zombie theme, like, I think on that Go Home SmackDown.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a good, I like it for a wrestling intro. I think it's a good theme for wrestling.
It's fine, but when compared to Metalingus, come on.
I mean, dude, few things compare to Metalingus. The name alone is an absolute masterstroke.
It really,
it really is. But they were pretty. Rob Zombie had the new album out, so they're promoting that.
Yeah,
and so they gave him the theme. I thought it worked pretty well.
It's fine.
Yeah,
but it's no Metalingus. I'll tell you what.
Fair enough.
This apart from the main event was probably the best match on the card.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. The finish was the last 5 minutes was really good.
A lot of and the pace was really good.
Yeah.
Edge gets the win with the roll up. So he hits Test with Edge is looking for an impaler. Test blocks that, looks for the Phil Nelson bomb, and then Edge counters with the roll up to get the win. But yeah, there's some really good stuff where for a while Test is trying to look for his finisher, I guess pump handle slam.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually hits it, but Edge kicks out. And then Edge ends up getting the win anyway. So both.
I think they both kick out of fin because Test kicks it. Test hits a spear, but then Test ends up kicking out of a spear as well. So yeah, this was a proper pay-per-view match where people were.
It really was all the false finishes.
Yeah, right.
People kicking out of finishers. This match could have happened in 2024, Steve.
Yeah, dude, exactly. A couple more flippy moves. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Edge did like head scissors in this. So
he did. That's right. Yeah, so it'd have been perfect in AEW.
There you go.
So after that, we get a locker room segment where Stephanie's pacing. She's worried because she'd sunk all of her finances. Kurt Angle walks in, and he's like, you look stressed out. And she's like, after what Stone Cold said earlier, none of them are getting along, and now Edge winning the Unified Championship. She's like, Kurt, do you understand what's on the line? I put all my money, all my investments, everything into the Alliance, and if we lose tonight, I become a regular person. That means Stephanie's really good with the comedy here. I have to do my own grocery shopping. I'll have to wash my own car, clean my house, scrub a toilet. She's like, Kurt, I can't be a regular person. And he's like, oh, don't worry. You're not a regular person. In case you didn't know, you're special. As far as Stone Cold, I think he's telling the truth. He's with the Alliance. But if he's not, I'll make sure he doesn't screw us. So don't you worry. Everything's going to be okay. Of course, he's the one who ends up screwing the Alliance.
Yep.
But first, we had the Hardys versus the Dudleys in a steel cage. But we get a backstage segment. Lita and Jeff are talking. Throughout this build here, Matt has been acting a little bit strange. There was a segment on the Go Home where Lita ends up eating, I forget what fish. It was like I forget what it was. But Matt Hardy's like cradling her. He kisses her, and then he sort of looks off to the side like there's something else going on in his head. In any event, she's like, hey, Jeff, Matt's been acting weird lately. What's up with that? And then Matt comes out of the locker room. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? And Lita's like, well, you've been acting kind of strange. She's like, we should all be acting strange. Look what's on the line tonight. If Team WWF loses, we're all out of a job. This has been my dream since day one. I don't want to be out of a job when it's not my own fault. If we win, we got a job regardless. No one could take our dream. He was like, Lita, you got a match for the women's championship. When you win that, no one could take away your dream. We're Team Extreme. We're going to keep our dream. And Lita's like, all right, you guys are next. Doom, doom, doom. She's like, I'll be watching. And then they leave, and Lita's about to walk into the Team WWF locker room. And then Trish comes out of there. And she's like, oh, good luck tonight. And then Lita's like, Matt came out of there.
They're in the same match.
and Trish came out of there. Were they doing something?
Who knows? Was that addressed on the Raw afterwards, Steve?
The locker room Lothario. Lita had a match against Trish, and Matt accidentally screwed over Lita. Yeah, I didn't. I was sort of fast forwarding through that bit, to be honest. I was trying to get to the consortium. But yeah, I got to the finish, right after the finish rather, and they're like, "Oh man, Matt already wears his head right now." and Lawler was like, puppies, because that was when Lawler came back.
Yeah. That was Lawler and Lawler's first night back, and then Flair's first night the Raw after.
Yeah.
So then we got the cage match, Dudleys versus the Hardys. This is a weird amalgam of cage match rules where you can win only by pinfall or both members of the team climbing out of the cage.
Yeah, tactical
Not
error.
out the door. You have to climb over the top.
Tactical error. Matt Hardy commits here, because he leaves and it's like, okay, well, now it's a handicap match.
Yeah.
Jeff versus the Dudleys, which would have been fine because Jeff Hardy ended up escaping the cage almost. He found himself up on the top of the cage.
Couldn't resist.
And he sees, I think, Bubba or Devon down there
Devon
on the table.
Yeah.
Okay. And Matt's like, come on, let's go. And Jeff's like, he's like, I'm sorry, dude, I see this right here. What am I supposed to do? Not do a swanton from the top of a cage through a guy through a table?
Yeah.
And so he tried that. Devon gets out of the way. Jeff comes crashing down through the table. And then I think Bubba then ends up getting the pin. And then they do the, you got like EMTs and refs come in.
Yeah.
And they do just a terrible job. They basically just sort of start shoving and pulling and tugging, the barely conscious Jeff Hardy out of the ring and eventually get him on a stretcher. But I'm like, y'all couldn't just put the stretcher in the ring and stretchered him out?
I know. You put the board in the ring, you put him on the board, then you take the person, in this case Jeff Hardy, once he's on the board, out of the ring and put him on a stretcher.
Yeah, no, they were just like, here, just get him. He's fine. Pull his arms, he'll be good.
Yeah. So then we're at WWF New York, where Mick Foley, commissioner of Raw, is not at the pay-per-view. Instead, he's at the restaurant. And he looks absolutely miserable.
So apparently he was.
Yeah,
I don't know how deep into the newsletter you read, but
I read that he was just unhappy and he just wanted to be done with it at this point.
So there was like a mishmash of him not being happy, creative not being happy with him not being happy, and so they're giving him bad creative, and so he was extra unhappy because they were giving him bad creative. And yeah, so they're like, hey, why are you there instead of Survivor Series? Like, well, since I'm the commissioner, but now I'm under Vince McMahon because Vince McMahon decided to come back after I was commissioner. The commissionership is a joke. He's like, so it doesn't matter who wins. If Team WWF wins, I'll be on Raw with some choice words for Vince. If Team Alliance wins, I guess I'll be like, he basically sort of gave it away. He was like, well, if Team Alliance wins, I'll be out of a job. But if the WWF wins, I'm going to be on Raw with some choice words for Vince. But he just seemed like he'd rather be anywhere else.
Yep. Just utterly not happy. So then we're backstage, and Scotty Too Hotty is running. Just running. I don't know why. He's just running through a hallway.
Like a stairwell, yeah.
Yeah, stairwell. And Tess stops him and goes, hey, you're in the Battle Royal tonight, right?
Hey,
Scotty
bud,
says,
you're in the Immunity Battle Royal, aren't you?
Yeah, and then Scotty says, yeah, what's it to you? So then Tess lays him out and yells, not anymore, you're not. Perhaps if Scotty had been doing the worm through this particular corridor, he would have got through safely.
That could be. Speaking of brain worms, this is the RFK Jr. Immunity Battle Royal.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
This was fucking the immunity. They couldn't have called it something cooler. A last chance battle royal.
I know. Save your job battle royal.
Right, exactly. The immunity battle royal.
That's because Survivor, the show, was popular at the time, right? And they have the immunity idol.
Hey, let's talk about the logo to the Survivor Series really quick. Why was
there a 1 in the number with where the eye was supposed to be?
So was it actually Serve One Vor series?
Maybe. It was back in the 90s where the whole thing was like, hey, we'll just swap in stuff. And
just do a bunch of radio. Put a Z here instead of an ES.
Yeah.
So the idea of this is no matter who wins, because you have like equal number of participants from the Alliance and WWF, The winner,
So
whoever
yeah,
wins
sorry,
this.
Survivor, the show started the year prior in 2000.
Oh, well, you're exactly probably right then. The winner of this won't be fired for a year. Your question here in your notes are, why are Raven, DDP, and Lance Storm in this match?
Not in something more high profile. Because,
Oh, yeah, totally true. Okay. I kind of understand, like, Lance Storm. Like,
Lance Storm, when used right, is great.
Oh, he is. But, like, it's not like he had been used. I know he was in WCW during the Russo, during the later days.
5 belts at one point.
I know, but dude, that's when it was just WCW was horrible, So it's not like he wasn't main eventing against Goldberg like DDP was.
No.
And Raven was on the cover of NWO Revenge.
Yeah.
This dude was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So on those two accounts, I agree. Lance Storm, I kind of get. Taz shows up a little bit late as well. And
he's beefing with Paul Heyman at this point.
So on the Go Home SmackDown, Heyman is gifted a promo. Well, he's granted a promo by Vince McMahon.
This is a pretty famous promo where he just goes off on Vince. Yeah.
It was very much of its time. Like, you stole all my ideas. You stole my creations. Your dad would be rolling, before your dad went around to all the territories and shook their hands and said, my son won't compete. And then you did. And you put everybody out of business. And McMahon just sort of stood there. And then Heyman turns his attention towards Taz. And he says, Taz was a great wrestler. He was a killer. He was an absolute phenomenon. And then look at him. You turned him into a fat, pathetic commentator, and he's not even good at that. And then he turns back to McMahon and he keeps on talking shit. Taz gets up and he puts him in the Kansa Hajime.
Yeah. Say it like Joey Styles.
Kansa Hajime!
Thank you.
Oh my God. So yeah, and then and so that was the beef there. It's because he called him fat, I think. He didn't seem to care about the other stuff. It was when he called him fat, that's when Taz was like,
that was the bridge too far right there.
It was, yeah.
This is, I guess, the promo where apparently Vince beforehand says to Heyman, "Go out there and make me money."
Okay.
To really try to sell, I guess, Survivor Series.
Oh! I hadn't heard that story. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So then, anyways, Test wins after finally eliminating Billy Gunn.
He thought he had eliminated Billy Gunn, but he skinned the cat, so to speak.
He did.
And then, what my question was, why is it were Tommy Dreamer and Stevie Richards like a tag team of some sort? They were dressed exactly the same.
Oh, that is a good question. I don't have an answer.
They were wearing like black. I mean, they were just wearing black pants and like one of them tight like raver shirts.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Didn't Tommy Dreamer say he was going to show up at WrestleMania 17 and like shoot Paul Heyman or something like that? He was planning on doing that.
That sounds familiar. Also, at some point during this battle royal, Chavo Guerrero and Hugh Morris show up.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I got the scoop on this one.
All right, so they were fired by the Alliance prior to the show
because they went into Vince McMahon's office and tried to curry favor with him, trying to play both sides. Hey,
gotcha.
If the Alliance loses, can we still have jobs? Vince McMahon said, get out of here. And then they end up going back to the Alliance, and they are all like, fuck you guys. You're out of the Alliance now. Yeah. So they were men with no nation.
So then they eliminate a couple members of the Alliance, and then they're tossed out of the ring by Billy Gunn.
Right, yeah.
Test ends up getting the win. He boots Billy over the top to get the W. Then we're backstage again. There's so many backstage segments for a pay-per-view.
Well, they're, again, writing all this at the last week. A lot of plot holes they got to fill in.
It feels like that they tried to use these backstage segments before the main event to build drama and hit the story beats that probably should have been hit during the actual match.
Mm-hmm,
because the match, even at 45 minutes, feels like such a sprint.
Mm-hmm, it does, yeah.
That there's you don't feel the match itself. You don't feel the weight of what's supposed to be on the line during the actual match.
Yeah, the crowd's more popping because they get to see a bunch of big stars of the WWF.
Exactly.
I think they would have been fine if Austin won this thing. It's like, well, whatever. I don't think anybody been like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? It's like, oh, more fun in the WWF.
Exactly. So we're backstage. Shane's talking to Booker T, and Booker's like, I trust you, but I don't trust Stone Cold. He says, I'm all about the alliance. I'm not going to lose my job because of Austin. And Shane says, everything is on the line tonight. And I looked in Austin's eyes, and he's the guy who's going to lead us tonight. And he tells Booker, you got to trust him. We have to stay together as a team or we won't have a shot. And Booker T just says, I hope you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After that, we had a 6-pack challenge for the vacant WWF Women's title. Chyna had left like a month or so prior to this. No mention of her in this match. It was the debut of Jazz, who had spent some time in ECW. Relatively new to wrestling, but she's pretty cool.
Oh, Jazz was great.
Yeah, she was awesome. Trish Stratus, Jacqueline, Lita, Ivory, Mighty Molly, and Jazz. So 3 members of Team Alliance, 3 members of the WWF. All of like 4 minutes, this match.
Like the level of talent in the ring for this match is off the charts.
It is, and they tried to do what they could with the 4 minutes they had here. But obviously with 6 people in it, you can't do a whole hell of a lot with this. Trish gets the win here, wins the title, hits Ivory with a Stratisfaction to get the win. And that was, I didn't know this was her first women's title. Okay.
So JR was saying that this match was constructed to help get Trish over.
Okay,
like the point of this match was to get Trish over as champion.
After this, we have maybe the worst pep talk I've ever heard in my life.
This is awful.
So Vince and Team WWF are backstage, and he's like, "Oh, I'm confident that you'll be victorious, but I'm also a pragmatist, so I could be looking at a group of losers. If you do lose tonight, I'd like you to remember that there isn't one WWF fan in the world who would forgive you. If you lose, each of you will be personally and professionally disgraced. If you lose, all of you will be ridiculed by your peers and family members. If you lose, well, what does it say about those who preceded you? Those who passed on, but their legacy lives on here in the WWF. Like Buddy Rogers, Dr. Jerry Graham, who's Vince's favorite wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah, they talk about him extensively in the Mr. McMahon documentary.
Yeah,
what
they do.
What a huge fan he was of Dr. Jerry Graham. Yeah.
Well, they used to hang out, too.
Yeah.
Gorilla Monsoon, Andre the Giant, and then, of course, for Rocky, High Chief Peter Maivia. What would they say? I want you all to consider the notion that Stone Cold is going to jump to Team WWE to be BS. Tonight, each and every one of you will fight for survival, and you'll feel that exhilaration you feel when you lay it all on the line. Tonight, I've chosen each of you to participate in this matchup. Tonight, you'll honor the WWF.
See, but you deliver that with far more urgency than Vince did when he actually delivered this pep talk to his team.
Because
it was all fairly monotone.
It was, yeah.
Well, like going out of that, if the idea was like, all right, you want to get your team to feel like they could run through a wall to get the win for WWF, this had the opposite effect. This was kind of putting me to sleep.
It's very deflating. Yeah,
it is deflating.
Come on. You're the Undertaker. The legacy, none of that. It was like, you're going to be professionally and personally,
I wonder if that's how he actually talked to talents backstage.
Yes, of course it is.
Yeah, it is.
Of course it is. Probably with, a little bit more of the humiliation. Unless, not the Undertaker. Like Big Show, yeah. Rock, probably not. Undertaker, he loves the Undertaker.
Jericho, absolutely. At this point in Jericho's career, yeah.
Yeah, Jericho, 1,000%. Kane, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about Kane. I don't know.
Loves Taker, though. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. So then we see Team Alliance. They're walking backstage. We get a video package of how the main event came together. Not Doors cover song again.
Oh, this one didn't utilize the Doors cover song?
No, it didn't.
Okay, all right. They used it at the beginning of the next episode of Raw, though.
Yeah. They use that song a lot. So then we got our main event, Team Alliance versus Team WWF. So the Alliance with Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, Booker T, RVD, and...
Wait, shit.
Shane.
Shane, yeah.
And then Team WWF was Rock, Undertaker, Kane, Jericho, Big Show.
Yes, yeah.
So you have 3 members of Team WWF Big Show, Jericho, Undertaker, who were in WCW before.
Okay, Undertaker, I would completely understand. He was well on record as being so anti.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, there's 3 members of that team that had history in WCW. On the Alliance team, you have Stone Cold, and you have Booker T.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on a second. So so in your estimation, let's rearrange these teams based on their history. So you're saying Team Alliance could have been Mean Mark Callis,
The Giant, Chris Jericho, Booker T,
and RVD. And then on the other side of things, Rock,
Austin,
Stone Cold, Kane,
Undertaker,
Shane
McMahon,
and Shane O'Mac. Yeah. Okay. So you probably would have put like a more prominent name. Who else from Team W? Who else could have been like?
Oh, do we say Angle for Team WWF?
Oh, Edge could have been. Oh,
yeah,
Edge. Yeah. Where's Angle?
Yeah, Angle should be Team WWF.
Angle. Hold on a second. 1, 2, 3. Shane was in the match. Who wasn't in this match? Oh, Undertaker. We've got 2 Undertakers.
Oh, 2 Undertakers.
We got Mean Mark Callis on too. So yeah, Shane would have been. But if you take Shane out, Edge.
Yeah, Edge would be a good name. Yeah,
Edge would have been good for Team WWF.
Yeah. Yep. Like we've mentioned several times, this is a 45-minute sprint. It's an elimination tag match, traditional Survivor Series rules, and the pace is fantastic. It never lets up for 45 minutes. It does not feel like a 45-minute match.
No, it doesn't.
But I think that comes at the expense of hitting some of the story beats that maybe should have been hit. Where, because most of the drama or reaction is not from participants in the ring. They cut backstage to the respective locker rooms when someone gets eliminated. Oh, gosh, darn it.
Yeah.
And then whoever eliminates the team that, does the eliminating, yay!
Right, yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to actually in the ring. That's like the one kind of knock I'd have against this. Like, there's some opportunities there to hit the drama, the stakes of the match during the match in the ring that I felt like didn't really happen.
So I'll be honest with you. So in the lead up to this also, Jericho and Rock were basically feuding.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, is what led to because Jericho tried to explain it to McMahon on the Raw afterwards. Because the finish basically saw the 4 guys who ended up being in the tournament for the Undisputed Championship. It was Angle, Austin, Rock, and Jericho. And so let's just go. We'll go from the eliminations.
The first elimination. So Big Show's first eliminated. He eats an angle slam, a scissor kick, 5-star frog splash. Then Shane's like, at this point, Shane has not been in the match. He's just been a disruptor, essentially.
He just comes in and breaks up pins.
Yeah, which is actually, he's really good at that. He's really entertaining at being a disruptor.
Yeah.
So Shane tags in, hits the top rope elbow. He gets the pinfall on Big Show. He's eliminated. So pretty quickly thereafter, Shane then eats a choke slam from Kane, tombstone from Undertaker, lion salt from Jericho. So Shane's out. It's 4-4 now.
Yep.
So then next eliminated is Kane. RVD hits him with a 5-star frog splash. But then Kane kind of no-sells it, grabs RVD by the throat, looking for a choke slam. Booker T breaks that up. So the match breaks down. So everybody else save for RVD and Kane are brawling ringside. So then RVD hits a top rope Van Daminator on Kane to eliminate him. So it's 3-2 Alliance.
Yeah.
So then Undertaker hits Angle with the last ride. Booker T tries to hit Undertaker with a chair, but Undertaker instead hits him with a boot. Mm-hmm. Then Austin hits Undertaker with a stunner and then puts Angle on top of him to get the pin. Undertaker's eliminated. Alliance have a 4-2 advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So then The Rock next eliminates Kurt Angle. He shoves Kurt Angle into Booker T. Sorry, other way around. Booker T into Kurt Angle, rolls up Booker T to eliminate him. Alliance now has a 3-2 advantage. So then after that, RVD is looking for a split-legged moonsault. Jericho, though, gets his knees up. This is that spell where Jericho is using the skull-crushing finale for his finish.
Because also like Jarrett's stroke.
Yeah.
Like the same. Yeah, I was so confused because I had forgotten about that. So when he gets that pin on RVD, I'm like, the fuck was that?
Yeah.
That was weird. So
yeah. So he eliminates RVD. So it's tied 2-2. So Jericho's isolated by the Alliance for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, Rock and Kurt Angle get hot tags. The Rock puts Angle into sharpshooter. Angle taps.
Mm-hmm.
So then Austin runs in and blasts the Rock from behind. Jericho rolls up Austin, but Austin reverses that to his own pin to eliminate Jericho. So Rock and Austin the final two. So Jericho's arguing with the ref. Rock hits Austin with a spine buster, but then Jericho hits the Rock with the skull-crushing finale because they've been beefing. And commentary was like this whole time, can they coexist in this match?
Yeah. Even though, like, Jericho, you're going to be out of a job.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's not like, this might have made some sense if The Rock accidentally, because, like, The Rock didn't hit Jericho. Like, there was, like, it'd be one thing if, like, in the heat of the moment, Rock accidentally nailed me with, lariat or something like that.
And then it was instinct. It was reaction. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, Stone Cold crawls over to cover the Rock. The Rock kicks out. So Jericho starts walking back to the ring, but Undertaker runs out and just lays into Jericho verbally.
Jeffrey's like, "Oh man, you're trying to get my job taken away from me. I need my paychecks. I need to feed my family. I'm not going to XWF."
And so basically he lectures him up the ramp and backstage.
He does lecture him, yeah.
So then Austin brings the WWF title into the ring. He's looking to hit the Rock with it, but the Rock ducks, hits a spine buster, puts Austin in the sharpshooter. Austin gets to the ropes. Rock brings him back to the center of the ring. Austin gets to the ropes again, so Rock has to break the hold.
By the way, their chemistry in the ring is unmatched.
It really is.
They are so fluid together at this point.
They are. So then, while the ref can't see it, Austin does the back kick for the low blow. He's looking for a stunner, but The Rock catches the kick that precedes the stunner, and they hit his stunner of his own.
Mm-hmm.
He covers, but NWO ref, now Alliance ref, Nick Patrick runs to ringside and pulls Earl Hebner out of the ring to break up the pin. And so The Rock brings Nick Patrick into the ring. He's about to hit him with a rock bottom, but then instead, Austin hits Rock with the rock bottom instead, covers, Rock kicks out. So then Austin gets to Nick Patrick's face, punches him, pulls Earl Hebner back into the ring, he's looking for a stunner, but then The Rock pushes Austin into Hebner, another ref bump, and he's looking for a rock bottom. Austin escapes, hits a stunner, but there's no ref.
I like that he didn't actually pin him. He started to, and then looked around, was like, "God damn, ain't no ref over here."
Yeah. So
Earl,
then Kurt Angle runs to the ring, picks up the WWF title, which at this point is on the floor. And the way the camera is framed, you have The Rock in the foreground, Austin in between Rock and Angle, and then Angle in there. So you think, he's going to run past Austin and hit The Rock. No, he just comes and blasts Austin with the title. Rock falls with rock bottom to get the win.
Yeah.
Rock has his WCW title. He's celebrating. And then Vince comes out to end the show. And The Rock looks at him like he's just annoyed by this.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrating on the ramp, doing this.
Yeah. Fighting spirit.
So that's how Survivor Series 2001 ends.
Yeah, it was a wildly fun match. But again, when you try to think of the logic of some of it, it's like, all right, so Angle was
out the window, man.
Were there any hints, of Angle? Is there any? This is the kind of thing that there really should have been much more intrigue, and it's like, who's gonna do what? And instead, it was all kind of ham-fisted and but the 45-minute Survivor Series match, that shit was hella fun. And as the pay-per-view, that was only 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a breezy show.
It was a breezy show.
One interesting note from JR he talks about on his show is apparently he was the one that had determined the payouts for everybody in the main event. And he said everybody was looking for a main event payout. But there's 10 people in the match.
Yeah.
And so he says, well, somebody might say just make it fair and give everybody the same. No, you're not going to do that.
No, you're not doing that. No.
And so he says it was a bit of a balancing act to give everybody what he thought was the appropriate amount, which everybody thought was going to be less than they should get.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Wow. I wonder what the total pot would have been.
I don't know. Because, it's a show that undersold what was probably expectations. I guess in terms of merch amount, it was well below what they had sold the year prior at Survivor Series.
Well, dude, I mean, look at what they had for merch. If honestly, if you look at the show, Number one, they were big on the long sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
And there was nothing iconic. The Rock was wearing his 9/11 homage shirt at the time. It was like, just bring it with the American flag on it and this really long-winded quote on the back about freedom or something like that. And it's like, I understand 9/11. We were around. It's a heavy thing. It's a big thing. Not really something like, I don't know. There was a sign on like one of the go-homes. There was a sign that said like, oh God, it was like, kill Osama or something like that. It was still raw. I get that. It was still, the emotions were very high and everything, but it's like, oh yeah, 9/11 happens. Let's sell some merch off of it. They weren't giving the proceeds to like first responders or anything.
No.
That was all going in Rock's pocket. So it's like, who's gonna wear that? I didn't see anybody in the crowd wearing that shit, No. Nobody, like the days of iconic merch was pretty much done at that point, Yeah. I mean, I'm sure when Austin went face, they were probably, they probably got those royalty checks going back up.
Yeah.
But also it wasn't too long after that Austin was on the outs with WWF anyways, because like Brock showed up and,
Less than that, it was probably about 6 months later because it was summer of the following year.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
May, I think I should say.
Yeah. But yeah, like Austin's shirt, it was like like a whiskey homage or some shit, like a Jack Daniels homage or something like that. 100 proof, whatever the fucking phrase was. It was just like, at that point, everybody's got their 316 shirts. They don't need more, or his weird like orange and black version, whatever that was.
Yeah, that was strange.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, how would you have broken it down if you were in good old JR's shoes? Like, you give Rock and Austin probably equal shares, right?
Or close to it, yeah. And then Undertaker a little bit below that.
Undertaker a little bit below that.
And then probably Angle.
Do you give, oh man, I'd probably give Undertaker and Angle equal share.
Yeah, I'll say just a little bit. And then Booker T probably a little bit below that.
I'm thinking where you put Jericho.
Oh, he's just above RVD. RVD got the least.
You think RVD got less than Shane?
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe Shane's the least, and then RVD, and then Jericho.
Shane and Big Show. So Shane, like, honestly, you kind of go by order of elimination.
Could.
I think you give.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you give Rock and Stone Cold the equal share.
Yeah.
Then you give Jericho and Angle a little bit below that. Then Undertaker. Then Kane.
Then Booker T. Then RVD. But RVD was
RVD was one of the most popular guys they had.
I know. But also, Booker was eliminated before RVD. So I guess, yeah, if you're going by order of eliminations.
I'd probably give Booker and RVD a very close, similar share. And then, like, maybe you think about giving Big Show and Shane a share.
Think about, you say.
Give him that $50 on a hot dog.
Wow.
Yeah, I wonder, like, they said the gate was 600,000. What do they do? Like, half goes to the company and half goes to the wrestlers?
Oh,
How
I
do
don't
they
know.
do that?
Well, I'd assume, I don't know. I don't know what the split is.
Yeah, we don't know. Let's see.
I'd be shocked if the ticket sales are split 50-50 though.
Okay, all right. 25% to the wrestlers?
Maybe.
Okay. Let's see. 600,000 times 0.25. Okay, so 150,000.
All right.
Oof.
So this is just, obviously they got their downside, so they're getting paid regardless. But
so
this is just in addition to, yeah.
Man, yeah. What do you give? Like, I don't know. Boy.
But I think you have to establish, all right, from the undercard up, because 150,000 is the bonus for everybody.
Like, you're giving Tajiri like $500.
Maybe. Like Al Snow's getting 250.
Austin ain't getting less than 25 G's.
Okay. So that means The Rock would get 25.
Right.
Too.
So you got 100,000 for the rest of the show. This is like my GM, man. We're not going to figure this out. Let us know in the comments below. How would you split $150,000 amongst all the wrestlers on this show?
Well, another thing to consider is like everybody in the Battle Royal gets a piece, and there was a lot of people in there.
Brother, they're getting
a couple $100. I understand.
They're getting a couple $100. They're getting a couple hundred.
I'm just
bucks.
saying, it adds up.
No, I know.
Quick.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah, they're
Because
getting
you're
a
probably
couple hundred
talking
bucks.
3,000 just from the Battle Royal by itself.
Is it possible that Rock and Austin would have only gotten like 20 large each? 10? Yeah, maybe even 10. Ugh. At
It's
that
probably
point,
a situation they're
here's the thing. At that
expecting
point, what the
25 or
fuck do they even care? I mean, it's an ego thing. It's a status thing.
Yeah.
Tajiri's getting $200. Stone Cold gets 10 G's. Because he's getting the merch. I mean, I know the royalty was probably down from 16 million to 2 million.
Yeah.
But he's still getting, a lot more than.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people are still buying those Austin 316 shirts then. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Anyways, let us know in the comments below. Do us a solid. Hit that thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and the notify bell. Do us a solid and go check out patreon.com/Steven Larson. Go check out, hit that join button. It's $5 a month. You get all the bonus episodes. You got the Big Blue Predictions Challenge coming up, part 2 of the month with the All Elite Wrestling Full Gear coming
Full Gear,
up
that's
this
the show.
weekend. That's the show. Who do you got? QT Marshall versus the Boom guys, the Costco guys.
Boom!
QT Marshall gets the Doom.
You got that right.
Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Till next time. We'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.